Hello all, and here we are back again to work on Chapter 4's Work-Along. A little discussion about Chapter 4. Chapter 4 deals with decision making, if statements, if-else statements, Boolean operations, how we decide if something's true or false, member operations, conditional expressions, all kinds of things that we have available to us. We are going to write a simple program on making decisions using if-else statements. So let's get started. We're going to start off by creating our project. So let's go with File, New, and then PyDev Project. Select that and give it our name of Chapter 4 Work-Along. And make sure that my interpreter is selected properly, and make sure that my create src folder is selected so it can create my source folder. Inside of my project, I'm now going to right click on my src folder and create my new PyDev module. PyDev module, like I said before, I always typically give it the same name, lowercase, with the same name as my project, because at some point we're going to end up creating multiple PyDev modules, and I like to keep the one that's going to have my main method, have that with the same name as my project, so I know that that's where my program will start. So we'll click on that and get our project to open. Click OK. See our doc string. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is you notice the numbering on the left-hand side, line numbers. You can click in that general area, right click in that general area, and there's a show line numbers link there. If I click on it, the line numbers go away. I click on the right click on that left-hand side, and I can click back and the line numbers will reappear. Always helpful, especially when you're troubleshooting a problem. It gives you a line number a lot of times to indicate where the issue is. Okay, so let's review what we're going to be doing in this program. Program is going to prompt the user for an automotive service, and then we're going to output that user's information, what they entered. So if I say oil change, it'll print out you selected oil change or something like that. And then we have to output the price of the service. So that's where our decision making comes in. Is I put in oil change, it's going to tell me my oil change is $35. If I say tire rotation, it'll display tire rotation at $19 or car wash at $7. So we typically stump this code out. We have in the first 3 chapters, but with decision making it gets a little more complicated. So I wanted to introduce you to flowcharting. Here's a simple flowchart to tell us what our program is going to do. So we start off, and this is just in Microsoft Word. You can do this in PowerPoint. All I did was I went up to Insert, and I selected shape, and then there's all kinds of shapes. There's flowcharting shapes down here. There's the boxes and the text fields up here. Any of those will work. You'll find a link in Canvas for standard flowcharting symbols. So the starting symbol is this rounded end box up here that says start. I know where to start, and I'm going to follow the arrows down. Our first step is to set up our variables and constants. So that being a rectangle is a internal process, something that's going to happen inside. And then we ask for the person to enter the service request. This parallelogram is a input-output. We're going to input a value from either a file, database. The user is going to enter something. We're expecting an input, so we use that symbol. That symbol then is going to bring in what service they want, And like I said, that symbol's an input output. So then when we want to display something, we use the same symbol and we say we're going to display what the user entered, basically is what we're saying here. Then we come down here. Our circle here is an on-page connection, which takes me up to the other on-page connection with the same letter and tells me that, okay, I'm coming in here and now I'm making a decision. Chapter 4 works on decision making. So I'm going to decide, did they enter oil change? If they entered oil change, I'm going to display the oil change price, and then I'm going to come down and end my program. If they did not enter oil change, that would bring me to the false side of my decision, and I would come back over here and say, okay, if they didn't enter oil change, did they enter tire rotation? Again, if that was true, I come down here and I display my tire rotation price, and then I come down and end the program. If that's not true, if that statement is false, then I take my false branch and I come over here and say, did they enter a car wash? True, then we display the car wash price. False, we will then display an error saying that they did not enter a proper service, and we would just display the error and then end the program. So that's our flow chart from start to finish. Notice the end is the same symbol as the start, that any of our displays are the parallelograms, and our decisions are diamonds. Like I said, there'll be a form in Canvas you can find that will explain what a lot of these symbols are. So with that being said, let's start creating our program. So our first thing we want to do, according to our flow chart, and I'll refer back to this, is to set up variables and constants. So I'm going to start off with $, and I'm going to say create variables and constants. Okay, constants are similar to variables in that they can be primitive data types, they can be objects, but being constants, they're not supposed to be changed. Python does not technically have a constant like other languages like Java or C++, but they have a way to indicate something that's supposed to be a constant, and we'll look at that in a second. So first variable I want to put in is service cost. Remember camel capitalization. Service cost is equal to 0. We're initiating our variable and providing it with an initial value. So we're creating service cost and we're saying initialize it to 0. Then I'm going to create some constants. Like I said, Python does not typically have a real constant, but they have a way to indicate a constant, and that is all caps. Any variable that is all caps is considered a constant. So I'm going to go oil, all caps, underscore change, and then I'm going to say that that is 35.00. So $35. We're casting this as a float because we have the 0.00 at the end. Service cost, we should cast that as a float with a 0.00 at the end to indicate that these are, say, dollar amounts. Okay, so we're going to cast those two or make those two floats. And then our next one is going to be tire rotation. Again, all caps, underscore, rotation, and that is going to be $19. So 19.00 for tire rotation. And last is car wash, underscore, all caps, equals 7.00. So those are our constants, which we identified as having all caps, and our variable, which has camel capitalization. Very standard in most programming languages technique to make those all caps as far as what constants are going to be. So let's get a little room so we get that towards the top. And now we want to put a $sign in there and enter in the service type. So enter service type. And that's a note to say this is what we're going to do next in this block of code. So here we're going to go service and then choice. and that is going to equal an input. Note that we're not casting it to any kind of different data type like integer or float. This is going to come in as a string, and we want to say service type, and then we're going to say enter desired auto service, colon, space, double quote, closing paren. So we're asking them to put in the service that they want, and then we're going to print out what they entered. So let's do a print statement, opening paren, double quote, you entered, colon, space, double quote, and then we're going to append that with the service choice. So service choice, we'll append it with that, and that should just display whatever we entered. If you want to run this right away to see if it functions properly, I'm going to right click in the white space area of my program, come down to run as, and then from there I'm going to click Python run. In my console, after I save it, my console, it should pop up and say enter a service choice. So I'm going to say oil change and hit enter, and it should say you entered oil change. So far that's working fine, there's no problems or anything. So now we're going to go on to our decision making. We have three types of service: oil change, tire rotation, and car wash. So now we have to decide which one did they enter. If they didn't enter any of those, remember, according to our flow chart, that we have to display an error message. So oil change, tire rotation, car wash. If none of those is entered, then display an error message saying that they didn't enter the appropriate service type. So, of course, we'll start this section with a comment, and it's going to say evaluate service type. So we're going to now use our if statements, elif statements, and else statements to determine what service they entered. So let's start off with an if, and our if is going to be service choice. Service choice, is that equal, equal. Note the two equal signs. Equal, equal versus line 14 where there's a single equal. Equal, equal is used for comparison. A single equal is used to assign a value. So we're assigning on line 14 whatever's coming in from the keyboard to service choice. On line 19, we're saying, is service choice equal to whatever we're going to enter next? And what we're going to enter next is going to be oil change. So oil change, double quotes, and then after that we'll finish that off with a colon. When we hit enter, Eclipse will automatically indent it for us. Anything inside of our if statement needs to be indented. Since we don't use brackets to determine blocks of code, Python is a format driven programming language, so anything that's indented from our if statement is going to be inside of that if statement. So now I'm going to say service cost is going to be equal to oil underscore change. Notice that I'm assigning service cost the value of my constant. So with that being said, I am now going to display what the cost of their service is. So we'll say print, double quote, cost of oil change is, colon, and then I'm going to do a $, percent, and then D. That is going to give me the ability to format my string. Okay, so $ percent D, I want to put, after the percent though, I want to put a .2. So we'll make it $ percent .2, and then D. And then after the double quotes, I'm going to throw in another percent, and then I'm going to say service cost. And that should be it for that line. So after that, I'm going to go to the next line. I'm going to left justify. I want to test something here because I want to make sure my formatting is right. I may have a small error, but I want to check on that. So desired service, oil change, says the cost of your oil change is $35. Something I don't like. I don't see my 0.00 after that. So in line 21, I'm going to change the D to an F. So it'll be $, which is just to print the $, and then the percent dot to F. F is indicating that this should be a float, and that should indicate that I want to display with the 0.2 2 decimal points to the right of the number. So let's go back to oil and run it again. Oil change and enter, and that looks much better. So I want to be able to format this so it looks like dollars and cents. So let's finish up on the rest of our code, and we'll talk about one more thing. So we're going to do an elif. An elif is considered an else if. So if service choice is not oil change, else if it's something else. So an else if will go again with service choice, and then again 2 equal signs, double quote, and we'll say tire rotation, double quote, colon, enter. Of course, it's going to indent automatically for us. Service cost, service cost is going to equal, and that would be tire underscore rotation, and then we'll do a print statement again. Print, opening paren, double quote, cost of tire rotation is colon space $, percent, .2 because we want to have our number with 2 decimal places to the right, and F to indicate it's a float, double quote, percent, and then service cost. Okay, and that will bring up when we enter our tire rotation. And then lastly, the second to last one, an elif, again for service choice, and equal, and the last one is car wash. Double quote and colon, enter, and service cost is going to equal car wash, all in caps, car underscore wash. Okay, to assign our service cost to that, and then our print statement. Print, opening paren, double quote, cost of car wash is colon $, percent, 0.2 F, double quote, percent, and then service cost. So what if none of those are selected? So far on our flowchart, we've made a decision on oil change, tire rotation, and car wash. If it's none of those, remember that could be false off the end of car wash. We need to display an error type message. So our error message is going to come down here, and we're going to say else. Else is going to be our default, our fallback to. You don't have to have an else. You don't have to have an elif. If you have an if statement, you could just have an if statement. These are going to be else are going to be other situations where we need to test to see if those statements are true. If service choice is equal to car wash, that statement's true, so we fall into this if. But if none of the ones above that are true, the else, if you choose to add one, will be the default one that comes into play. And all we're going to do here is do a print statement, opening paren, double quote, error, colon, requested service is not recognized. Period, double quote, closing paren. That's pretty much it for the program, so programming part of it. So let's start by running this and testing all of our scenarios. Go ahead and save it, run it. It will come in with a service request. I'm going to type in car wash and have it report back to me. You entered car wash. The cost of the car wash is $7. I know that my oil change works, so I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to try tire rotation. Enter, and it tells me my tire rotation is going to be $19. Perfect. So far, so good. I'm going to do 2 more tests. I'm going to enter paint job. I want to have my car painted. Hit enter. It says you entered paint job, error, requested service is not recognized. Okay, exactly what I expected. Now here's something a little different that I want to show you before we go, and that's going to be, I'm going to enter oil change. Enter, you would expect it to say $35 from what we've done, but it tells me it's got an error. If you notice, oil change here, change has a capital C. When we programmed this, up here, we said if it equals oil change with a lowercase c. So be careful of how you set this up. If you are going to do it this way, make sure you've got an exact match. Because if it's not an exact match, just that one letter indicates that this is a false statement, and oil change does not match any of the if or elif statements, and it falls into our default of our else. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Use the discussion forum, and I look forward to seeing you in Chapter 5. Take care.